I moved into my new apartment about 3 months ago. I was still adjusting to my life after the separation from my husband. My daughter Lily and I needed a fresh start. The apartment complex was old and rundown, but it was all we could afford. The neighborhood seemed quiet, but there was something unsettling about it. At first, I thought the silence was a blessing. But as the days went by, I began hearing things through the walls. It started with muffled voices. I could hear arguing from next door. It was a man and a woman, yelling about money. I'd think about my own bills and just brush it off. A family fight was nothing to get worried about. Then the arguments escalated. Every night they got louder, sharper. I couldn't sleep. There were also strange sounds, like rhythmic tapping. It sounded like a child playing, but I never saw any kids. Sometimes I could hear whispers through the walls, too. It felt strange and eerie, especially at night when I lay in bed with Lily sleeping next to me. One night I heard a voice call for help. It was small and desperate. My heart raced and I turned to look at Lily. She was sound asleep. I wanted to do something, but fear held me back. What if it was nothing? I didn't want to scare her with tales of neighbors who needed help. I figured it was just my imagination. I didn't talk to anyone. My neighbors seemed distant. I didn't know them. I often saw them rushing past me without a word. The fights continued, and I wanted to understand, but I was too scared to knock on their door. Maybe they were in a tough spot, and I didn't want to get involved. That night, the cries for help became clearer. I sat in my small kitchen, feeling cold. I wanted to comfort that child, but a warning voice told me to stay away. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? I hear noises? That didn't seem enough. When Lily finally woke up, I didn't mention anything. I hoped if I ignored it, it would disappear. But that wasn't true. The arguments only grew. I felt trapped. One night, while I was watching TV, it suddenly went silent. I turned it off and strained to listen. That's when I heard it, the sound of thumping on the wall. Then everything went quiet. Just as I thought about getting up, a soft voice whispered my name. Emma. I froze. Was I dreaming? The voice sounded frightened. I didn't know what to do. I peeked through the crack in the wall and my breath caught. There was something moving. I stood there, unable to move. Then I realized I wasn't ready for what was about to happen next. I took a deep breath, willing myself to move. Whatever was happening next door had escalated beyond just ordinary arguments. The sound of scratching pulled me closer to the wall. It was not just the movements I felt. There was a strange energy radiating from that cracked space, like a magnetic pull. Suddenly, a crash echoed through the thin partition. I flinched, heart pounding against my ribcage. I didn't want Lily to wake up scared, but the tension on the other side of the wall was unbearable. What if the child really is in danger? I thought desperately. I had to know what was going on. I took an unsteady step back. A loud series of bangs followed. It felt like someone was throwing things. My heart raced as I considered the options. I could call the police, but would they even take me seriously? I was just a woman in her apartment hearing noises. The thought felt ridiculous. Then, the whisper returned. Emma. This time it sounded even weaker, almost like a plea. I peeked again, with trembling hands pressing against the cool wall. For a brief moment I saw a shadow, a small figure sliding along the floor. My gut twisted. Something was wrong. I turned away, fighting the instinct to run, but I was drawn back to the shrinking sound of distress. I considered my options again. I could ignore it, pretend it was just an illusion meant to keep me in my place. Or I could confront my fears. I knocked softly on the wall. unsure if I was making a mistake. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice cracking. Silence fell. Then, faintly, I heard the response. "Help." My heart dropped. It was a small voice, filled with fear and desperation. I blinked, trying to gather strength. I had to do something. Every instinct screamed for action. Before I could think any longer, I grabbed my phone and punched in the emergency number. As the ringing echoed in my ear, I listened for any sound from next door. The soft knocking returned, increasing in urgency. I could feel the child's fear creeping through the walls, wrapping around me like a freezing fog. A voice on the line finally responded. I relayed what I'd heard, but just as I started to describe the noises, they cut me off. "Ma'am, can you confirm that someone is in danger?" It was hard to speak. "I can't see anything, but I hear someone," I stammered, confused and desperate. And then, the line went dead. My heart raced. I tried calling back, but there was no signal. I glanced back at Lily's sleeping form. My mind raced. I couldn't leave her here alone. But I couldn't ignore that child's voice either. I made up my mind. I had to look for myself. I wrapped a sweater around my shoulders, unable to shake the colder energy that crept through my apartment. Before I stepped out of my living room, I held my breath and turned toward the door that led into the hallway. But just as I reached for the knob, I heard a loud bang coming from the neighbor's apartment, followed by a chilling silence. Someone was in trouble, and I was about to find out just how deep this darkness ran. I gripped the doorknob, shaking as I turned it slowly. The hallway felt eerily quiet, and every creak of the wood beneath my feet reminded me of my own heartbeat. I took a deep breath and stepped out into the dim light. The air was thick with tension. I could still hear faint sounds from the adjacent apartment. The low, muffled cries that were so close to being heard, but always just out of reach. I glanced back toward my door, my mind racing with worry for Lily. She was so vulnerable, wrapped in her dreams while chaos unfolded next door. But the voice, a child's voice, demanded my attention. I couldn't ignore it. Moving cautiously toward the neighbor's door, I pressed my ear against it. The sounds were clearer now, sharp and urgent. "Please, help me." My stomach twisted in knots. I knocked, my knuckles barely tapping the wood, but it felt like a thunderclap in the silence. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I called out softly, trying to keep my voice steady. I received no response, just that strong pull of silence that made everything feel even more sinister. I hesitated for a moment, considering my next step. Should I just barge in? My anxiety surged, but there was no way I could back down now. I raised my hand to knock again when the door rattled suddenly. I jumped back, heart racing as the sound of shuffling footsteps followed. "Help!" the voice cried again. It was more desperate this time. My instincts kicked in, drowning out my fear. I fumbled with the doorknob, hoping it was unlocked. It was. I pushed the door open slowly, the hinges creaking ominously. Darkness enveloped me as I stepped inside, and the air was stale, thick with an unsettling energy. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. I squinted into the darkness, wishing I could see the source of the anguish that echoed around me. The shadows in the corners seemed to stretch and deepen, making it hard to focus. Then a small figure darted across the room. A child, no older than 7. I barely caught a glimpse before they vanished behind a battered couch. "Please help me," they begged again. I rushed forward, my heart pounding. "Are you okay?" I whispered, keeping my voice soft. The child's wide, scared eyes peered out from behind the furniture. I knelt down, trying to level with them. "Where is your parent? Are you alone?" Suddenly, another sound erupted behind me, and my breath caught in my throat. A door banged open somewhere in the apartment. I quickly turned, adrenaline surging through me. Darkness surrounded me, but my focus was now divided. "Get away from her!" A deep, angered voice snarled from the hallway. The child shrank back, fear etched on their face. I braced myself for what was to come, heart racing, as I faced the unknown threat that lurked nearby. It was clear I had stepped into something much darker than I'd anticipated. I shifted my weight, scanning the room for any sign of danger. The words, "Get away from her," rang in my ears, sharp and unsettling. I couldn't let fear paralyze me. The child needed help, and I had to protect them. "Who are you?" I called out, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What do you want?" My voice trembled, but standing my ground felt necessary. The deep voice replied, laced with bitterness. "You should leave. This is none of your concern." "What do you mean?" I pressed, a sense of urgency flooding my mind. "That child is in danger." Behind me, the child whimpered. "Please don't leave me," they whispered, clutching the couch as if it was the only thing keeping them safe. Without thinking, I took a step forward, moving closer to the child. I could feel their fear radiating off them. It was tangible in the dimly lit room. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, more to myself than anyone else. The voice laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You don't really know what you're doing. You think you can just waltz in and play hero? You have no idea what you're up against." The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. In that moment, I made my decision. I would not turn back. "I've encountered danger before," I muttered, pushing through the uneasy feeling pooling in my stomach. "And I'm not afraid of you." Just then, a sudden crash echoed from deeper within the apartment, like something toppling over. My heart raced as I turned toward the noise, panic replacing the resolve I'd felt only moments before. "Stay here!" I instructed the child, not waiting for an answer. I crept forward, fighting the instinct to flee. The air grew colder, wrapping around me like a shroud. I found myself in a narrow hallway illuminated by flickering light. Dark shadows danced along the walls, and I strained to listen for any movement. I was unprepared for what I would see. As I approached a door at the end, it swung open suddenly. A tall figure blocked my path, their face shrouded in darkness. Without thinking, I backed away, colliding with the wall. "Thought you could save her," the figure hissed, stepping closer. "You're too late." Fear gripped me tightly as I gasped for breath. The child's frightened expression flashed in my mind, spurring a desperate energy within me. "Who are you?" I shouted, desperation forcing my voice to rise. "What do you want?" At that moment, I spotted something on the floor, an object that gleamed in the minimal light. My breath caught as I recognized it. A small, battered doll, its eye missing and stuffing peeking out. That's when it hit me. It belonged to the child. Suddenly, everything I thought I understood about this situation shifted. Just then, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging me into darkness. I was trapped, the air thick with dread and uncertainty. The voice sneered from behind me. "Welcome to the real nightmare." I felt my pulse racing as the oppressive darkness closed in around me. The figure loomed closer, their outline barely visible, but I could sense the threat radiating from them. I tried to take steady breaths, my mind racing through possible escape routes. "What do you want?" I repeated, my voice shaking despite my attempt to sound assertive. I had to buy time. "Funny you should ask," the figure said, amusement dripping from their voice. "I want to see how far you're willing to go to save that little girl." With the doll in my grasp, I felt a surge of protection for the child, but dread followed close behind. What game was this? What were the stakes? "Let her go," I shouted, my voice gaining strength. She has nothing to do with this. Ah, but she has everything to do with it, they replied. You see, this isn't just about me or you. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice. I shifted my weight, trying to keep myself steady. You think I'll just let you hurt her? I spat back, pushing through the cold fear wrapping around me. Suddenly I heard a sound from behind me. A soft sob. The child. My heart sank. I turned quickly, trying to gauge their expression even in the dim light. It's okay, I reassured them, even as uncertainty gnawed at my insides. I'll protect you. The tall figure stepped forward, blocking my view of the child. Protect her? They mocked. You're standing in the way. You should just leave while you can. Panic spiked again. I couldn't just abandon the child. There had to be a way out. I scanned the room, searching for anything I could use. Then I caught sight of a window at the end of the hall. Small, but maybe just large enough. Come here, I called to the child, urgency spilling from my voice. I couldn't let them feel alone. Stay close to me. The figure laughed again, as if my determination amused them. You really think you can run? This is my domain. You're in over your head. Adrenaline coursed through me. I guess we'll see about that. I shot back, edging closer to the child while keeping my eyes locked on the figure. Then suddenly the lights flickered and went out. I stumbled forward, disoriented by the darkness. No! I gasped, panic flooding my senses. I could hear the child whimpering, but everything felt chaotic. That's when I felt a hand, a small trembling one, grasping my arm. I turned to find the child at my side, their eyes wide and terrified. What do we do? They whispered, their voice quivering. I'm not leaving you, I promised, determination rising within me. The darkness swirled like a living thing, and with it came a realization. I needed to create a distraction. A plan formed in my mind. On the count of 3, we're going to run for that window, I whispered urgently. 1, 2. But before I could say 3, a deafening crash echoed again, and the door I had come through burst open. My heart sank. Someone else was inside the house. I grabbed the child's hand tightly. No matter what happens, stay with me, I said, face taut with resolve as the chaos around us intensified. Feeling the grip of fear and the weight of the child's small hand in mine, I realized I was not just fighting for my own safety, but for something far more important. The sound of the splintering door sent shockwaves through me. I tightened my grip on the child's hand, both of us frozen in place as uncertainty took hold. My heart pounded in my chest, the realization that we weren't alone sinking in. The figure in the dark moved slightly, casting a tall, menacing shadow by the flickering light of a nearby lamp. Looks like we have some company, they drawled, a smirk audible in their voice. I felt the child tremble beside me, and I squeezed their hand to reassure them as a wave of dread washed over me. Who is it? I whispered to the child, my voice low but steady. They shook their head, eyes wide with fear. I couldn't see their face clearly, but I could feel the panic radiating from them like heat. Then, another figure stepped into the dim light, and I gasped. It was a woman, tall and imposing, wearing an unsettling smile that announced she was delighting in our terror. Well, well, she said, her tone silky smooth. Looks like I've found quite the spectacle. Stay away from her, I shouted instinctively, stepping protectively in front of the child, though my insides twisted with fear. I didn't know if I could face this new challenger too. My mind raced. Who was she? Oh, I'm not here to hurt her, the woman said, waving a hand dismissively. I'm only here for entertainment. Yours, of course. Her eyes sparkled with sadistic glee. Think of this as a little game. The stakes couldn't be higher. I caught the figure from earlier shifting behind her, clenching their fists. Were they allies or enemies? The thought sent chills down my spine. What game? I demanded, my voice betraying none of the fear clawing at my throat. What do you want from us? The woman took a step closer, a predatory gleam in her eyes. Oh dear. Don't be coy. You know what's at stake. Can you protect her? Or will you abandon your courage when it truly matters? Her words hung heavy in the air. I couldn't just stand by and let my fear control me. I needed to take action. Listen, I don't care what you want. I snapped back, mustering whatever defiance I could. You can't break me. Before she could respond, I turned to the child. When I say go, we'll make a run for that window. I pointed in its direction, knowing it was our only chance. I won't leave you behind. Just trust me. The shrouded woman laughed softly, as if my words were amusing. Trust, my dear. That's the slippery slope, isn't it? Then she took another step forward, raising her hands as if setting a trap. But let's make this count. How far will you go? I hesitated for a split second, and in that instant, I saw the door behind her tremble as if something was trying to force its way through. The noise was enough to jolt me back to reality. Now! I whispered fiercely to the child, but just as I turned to run, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind us. I could barely register the shock. Someone else was here, another shadow creeping closer, and in the dim light, I recognized a familiar figure. Stop! I yelled, a mix of relief and confusion flooding me. What are you doing here? This revelation only added to the chaos, and my mind raced. What did this mean? Would they help us, or was this just the beginning of something else entirely? I barely had a moment to process my confusion when the familiar figure stepped fully into the light. It was Jake, my brother. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by a frantic urgency as his eyes darted between me and the woman. What are you doing here? I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could make a sound, the tall woman interrupted. Oh, how sweet. Family reuniting under such delightful circumstances. Her smile widened. But let's focus on the matter at hand, shall we? Jake's gaze was intense. Get out of here now. He lunged forward, positioning himself between the woman and me. It surprised me. He'd always been the one to seek safety rather than confrontation. What are you doing with that kid? He demanded, his voice steady. Calm down, sweetheart, the woman replied, feigning innocence. I'm just offering a game. A chance to see who really has what it takes to protect their own. I felt the child squeeze my hand tighter, and I glanced down at them. Their face was pale, eyes brimming with tears. I couldn't let fear win. Jake, I need you to help us get out of here, I said, trying to find some certainty in this chaos. He nodded, but the uncertainty in his eyes mirrored my own. What are your choices? We can run, he offered, glancing nervously at the door, still shaking ominously. I looked back at the woman whose unwavering gaze seemed to assess our every move. What are the rules? I asked, trying to buy us time. Oh, there are no rules. Just survival, she cooed, twirling a strand of her hair. She stepped closer, almost playful, and I could feel the dread suffocating us. Make a mistake, and you might find yourselves playing for more than just your lives. What do you mean? I shot back, unsure but desperate. What more? A cruel laugh escaped her lips. Oh dear, perhaps I shouldn't spoil the surprise. Before I could think, I felt the air shift. the door behind the woman burst open with a violent crash. A dark figure burst through, their presence radiating a sense of danger that froze my blood. "Get down!" Jake shouted, grabbing my arm. Hesitating wasn't an option anymore. I pulled the child close, crouching behind Jake. The woman seemed unfazed, still a smirk playing at her lips. "Well, this complicates things," she muttered, glancing at the newcomer with an unsettling calm. The figure moving forward was tall and shadowy. The dim light flickered, making it hard to distinguish features, but the intensity of its presence struck fear into the depths of my heart. Panic bubbled within me as I turned to Jake, my heart racing. "We have to go! Now! Wait!" he yelled, eyes wide. "We need a plan!" Before I could argue, I felt the child tugging my sleeve, whispering, "We can't stay here." Somehow I felt an urgency in their words that outweighed the chaos around us. I made up my mind. We needed to act fast. "If we're going to get out, we need to make it count. Follow my lead," I said, forcing my voice to steady, but there was no going back. Just as I began to formulate a plan, the dark figure stepped closer, stretching out an arm. "Will you play?" they asked, their voice dripping with menace. That's when I saw it. A glint in the corner of the room, catching the light. A glimmering object lying just outside the woman's reach. I had to get to it. Desperation surged through me. We were all in danger, and I wouldn't let this chance slip away. I took a breath, ready to act. But as I turned back to the child and Jake, I spotted another figure lurking behind the shadows, and I knew we weren't finished yet. I tensed, the tension in the room escalating as the second figure stepped forward. The flickering light illuminated enough to reveal a familiar face. It was Mia, the child's older sister. Her eyes were wide with fear, and I could see she was just as bewildered as we were. "Mia, what are you doing here?" I blurted, relief battling with confusion. "You need to get out of here." "Don't tell me what to do," she snapped, the quaver in her voice betraying her fear. I couldn't leave her. Her gaze darted to the child beside me. I thought I could help. "We can't help anybody if we're all dead," Jake barked, still poised for action. The woman laughed again, bemused. "Look at that, a little family reunion of heroes." She stepped back slightly but kept her eyes on us, relishing the chaos. "But you see, there's a cost for playing my little game, my loves. Your bravery will be tested in ways you can't even begin to imagine." "Just tell us what you want," I demanded, my voice sharpening with impatience. "Let the kids go, and we can figure this out." "Let me be clear," she replied, arching an eyebrow. "I don't want anything you have. I just want to watch you all squirm, make a mistake, and the consequences will be delightful." The shadowy figure stepped closer, towering over the others. A chill ran down my spine as I noticed it was holding something. In its hand was a small flickering device. It looked like a remote control. An unease washed over me. What were they planning to do? Jake's grip tightened on me. "We have to think of a way out. We need to keep moving." Mia took a step closer to me. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Stay close. We move when I say so," I instructed, trying to keep my composure. My mind raced through options, but fear clouded my judgment. The woman leaned in, observing. "Oh, how entertaining, watching you scramble like little rats." Her voice dripped with mockery. "But I suggest you hurry. The more you delay, the more interesting this gets." With a nod, I glanced at the glimmering object out of the corner of my eye. The device. It might be the key to disarming her twisted game. "I see it," I whispered to Jake. "I need you to distract her. Just enough for me to grab it." Got it, he said, steeling himself. On 3. Before I could process what he was doing, he turned abruptly, lunging towards the woman. "Hey, look over here," he shouted, playing the bait. In that split second, I bolted toward the corner, heart racing, praying the darkness would hide my movement. I reached for the glimmering object just as the air crackled with tension. It felt cold against my fingers, but then a deafening crash echoed from behind me. I whipped around to see Jake sprawled on the ground, the dark figure looming over him. My heart plummeted. This was escalating beyond what I could handle. Just as I started to process the scene, avoiding the panic, I heard the woman's voice ring out. "Now, let's see how well you play together when I raise the stakes." Panic surged again. "Jake!" I screamed, but the sense of impending doom loomed with the silence that followed. We had to act. Time was running out, and I felt it in my gut that we were losing our chance to escape. If we're going to survive this, I thought desperately, we need a plan, and we need it now. My mind raced as I clutched the device, my heart hammering in my chest. It felt heavier in my hand than it looked. I needed to make a decision, and I needed to make it fast. Jake was counting on me. I could see him struggling on the ground. The dark figure had him pinned, and I felt a surge of anger mixed with fear. I looked at Mia and nodded. "You keep an eye on the kids. If things get out of hand, get them out of here," I instructed, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The woman's laughter echoed in the room, mocking our uncertainty. "Oh, they won't be going anywhere. Not yet." She raised her hand and pressed a button on the device she held. A faint hum filled the air, and a low light emanated from it, casting eerie shadows across the floor. "What did you just do?" I demanded, my voice rising in panic. "Just a little activation," she said sweetly. "Let's just say it's a game changer. Wouldn't you like to see how much more fun this can get?" I recognized the way her eyes sparkled at the chaos she could unleash. The fear turned into a sharp edge of determination within me. I had to try something. Anything. Ignoring the voice in my head screaming for caution, I took a deep breath and hurled myself toward Jake. "Jake, get up!" I yelled, hoping to snap him out of whatever trance the figure had put him in. But the dark figure was ready. It turned its attention back to me, a sneer forming on its lips. "A little too eager, aren't we?" It lunged forward, its intention clear. I ducked just in time, adrenaline flooding my veins. "Jake, the device!" I called out, hoping he could still hear me. If I could take control, we stood a chance. I pointed to the remote I held, a desperate plan forming. "I can use this to turn the tide." Suddenly a blinding light burst from the device, illuminating the room. Everyone squinted, caught off guard by the flash. That's when I saw it. On the dark figure's wrist was what looked like a matching device. A connection. My heart thudded with realization. If I could sync the two, we could turn this around. "Get ready to distract them!" I yelled, knowing this was our moment. "We have one shot!" Jake nodded, shaking off whatever held him down. With renewed strength, he got to his feet and readied himself. Just as I prepared to sprint toward the cloaked figure, I felt a hand on my wrist. It was Mia, her expression a mixture of fear and bravery. "Be careful," she whispered. "I will," I promised, gathering my courage. With one final glance at the kids, I dashed forward. The woman's eyes widened as she realized what we were doing. Before she could react, I pressed the buttons, syncing both devices together. There was a moment of stillness. Then the room shook with a mighty force. Then everything went dark. I was pulled into an abyss of nothingness, the deafening silence an unsettling contrast to the chaos that had erupted just moments before. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of the surreal fog enveloping me, A pulse of distorted energy wrapping around my limbs and pulling me deeper. Then, lights flashed, dim and flickering, bringing enough clarity for me to recognize the room. But something was different. The oppressive weight of darkness had lifted. Confusion twisted my stomach. I gasped, struggling to regain my bearings as I turned my head to find Jake, Mia, and the child on the floor beside me. They looked disoriented but unharmed. "Is everyone okay?" I managed to call out, voice strained. Mia's eyes were wide, reflecting equal parts fear and relief as they met mine. "Yes," she shouted back, scrambling to her feet. "What happened?" "I think we—" I hesitated, processing the phenomenon around us. The shape of the room seemed more familiar now, devoid of the dark figures that had loomed over us. "We might be safe. For now." Jake pushed himself up, glancing around with a mix of disbelief and gratitude. "That device, it severed whatever hold they had on us," he murmured, awe replacing the fear on his face. "I don't know if they're really gone," I said, feeling a persistent chill of uncertainty slam against my resolve. It felt like we switched something off, but they could return. The echoes of the woman's taunts rang in my ears. The child stood up, trembling. "Are we free?" Their voice was small, filled with an innocence that only heightened the weight of the stakes we'd just been through. A flicker of hope rose in me. "I think so, but we need to stay vigilant. We can't let our guard down." As I spoke, my heart sank as I realized the reality of the danger that still lay ahead. Following my train of thought, Mia scuttled to the door, her eyes scanning for any signs of peril. "We should get out of here," she said, her voice firm with conviction, even though I could still see her hands tremble. "Yeah, good idea," Jake responded, brushing himself off. "Let's move quickly." We all crowded together, using the silhouette of the dim light to navigate towards the exit. The door creaked open tentatively, and we emerged into the hallway, which felt both like a prison and a land of escape. "What if they come back?" the child whispered, pressing close to me. I wrapped my arm around them, wishing I could banish their fears with a simple promise. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "But we have to stick together." We moved cautiously, each footstep echoing in the emptiness that felt like a breath held. My thoughts swirled, replaying everything that had transpired. The dark figures, the ownership they held over that child, the menace in their laughter. "I still can't shake the feeling that we didn't finish," I murmured as we approached the end of the hallway. We stepped into the cooler air outside the apartment. Relief washed over me like a wave, but it was quickly replaced with unease. I looked back into the dim corridor where shadows danced further down. The echoes of the past lingered like ghosts. "Let's keep moving," I urged. I could still sense a darkness pulling from somewhere deep within those hallways. It felt unfinished, lingering like an unwelcome thought. As we walked away from the apartment building and into the night, I wondered if we had truly escaped, or if this was merely a pause in a larger game, one that hadn't ended and remained firmly rooted just beyond our reality. I still think about it sometimes. What lurked in that old apartment? Were the dark figures truly gone? Or were they waiting, watching, just beyond the veil of our understanding? I suppose I'll never know. I still hear echoes there sometimes, whispers in the night. But I've left that life behind, at least for now.